If you're even thinking about going to law school, you need to hear this. Something big is happening behind the scenes, and it's going to change how people apply to law school, who gets in, and who can afford to stay. For the past several decades, law school tuition has gone up and up and up. $60,000 a year, $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year, and beyond, and most people just went with it because they had help, but not from family, not from scholarships, from Grad Plus loans, a government loan program that let you borrow literally as much as you needed to cover your law school costs. Didn't matter if you needed $10,000 or $300,000. Didn't matter if you came from a working class family or had zero savings. If you could pass a basic credit check, you could borrow enough to go. And that program is about to disappear. And when it does, poof, no more blank checks for law school. You won't be able to take out just whatever you need to cover tuition, housing, food, books, bar prep, and insurance. You'll be capped most likely at around $150,000, $200,000 total. So let me translate that. If your law school costs $280,000 all in, which is actually normal these days, crazily enough, and you could only borrow $150,000, you are now personally responsible for figuring out how to cover the gap. That might mean getting a private loan. It might mean tapping family, or it might mean turning down the offer you worked so hard to earn. This isn't just some policy shift happening in a faraway corner in Washington. This is a nuclear bomb being quietly dropped on the entire grad school funding model. I want you to imagine for a minute what would happen if every law school applicant in America suddenly had $100,000 less to spend. Because that's what's about to happen. And this won't affect just poor students. It will affect everyone who doesn't have family money or outside support. And it will expose the truth. Law school has never been priced based on value. It's been priced based on how much you could borrow. That's all over now. And law schools are going to be forced to answer a question they've dodged for decades. Can we still charge $90,000 per year if students can't borrow enough to pay it? They've never had to face that before, but they will now. So if you're serious about law school, your entire mindset needs to shift. You can't just apply and hope. You can't just assume the loans will come through. You can't afford to play the old game. The rules are changing, and you either learn the new ones or you get left behind. And that's what this episode is about. Let me show you how we got here and what smart applicants are doing to win anyway. First, let's stop pretending that law school tuition is based on logic, because it's not. It's not based on professor salaries. It's not based on how much it costs to run a law library or keep the lights on. And it's definitely not based on what you actually learn over those brutal 3 years. Law school tuition is based on one thing: how much you're able to borrow. And for the last few decades, that amount has been unlimited thanks to a little-known federal loan program called Grad Plus. Here's how it worked. You want to go to law school. Tuition is, say, $80,000 a year. You also need $20,000 for housing and food. So you fill out a basic form, pass a simple credit check, no cosigner, no income check, and boom, you get the full $100,000 backed by the US government. No one asks whether the degree is worth it. No one checks if the law school is even reputable. No one tells you what the monthly payments will look like after graduation. They just hand you the money. It's like being given a blank check with the words "for law school" in the memo line, and law schools have been cashing in. They know you're not paying out of pocket, so they raise tuition a little more each year, 3%, 5%, sometimes more. And why wouldn't they? You're not going to negotiate, and you're not going to walk away. You're borrowing anyway. So year after year, prices crept up, and Grad Plus silently made it all possible. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a helpful loan. It was the entire engine that powered the law school industrial complex. Without Grad Plus, a lot of schools wouldn't survive. And now, Congress, the Trump administration, they're pulling the plug. Under a new proposal that Trump has signed, Grad Plus will be eliminated, and total federal borrowing for grad students, including law students, will be capped somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. That's not a little trim around the edges. That is cutting off the money supply entirely. So, if you've ever wondered why law school costs so much, you now have your answer. It was never about the actual cost. It was about what the government let you borrow. And now that the rules are changing, the entire system is being exposed. Law schools are about to face something they've never dealt with before: students who cannot afford to pay, even if they want to. So, what happens next? Some schools will double down. Some will offer more merit aid, and some will collapse entirely. But the most important thing isn't what they do, it's what you do. Because the days of just borrow and figure it out later are gone. Now, you've got to think like an investor, and that starts with knowing your leverage. First, let's answer the big question on everyone's mind. If students can't borrow as much, will law schools finally lower tuition? Here's the short answer. Some will, most won't, and definitely not right away. Now here's the long answer, the one nobody at the law school admissions office is going to tell you. Law schools are businesses. They like sounding like nonprofits. They like talking about mission and access and educating the next generation of leaders. But when it comes to pricing, they act just like any other business. Charge the maximum amount the market will bear. That's why so many of them raised tuition every single year, no matter what happened in the economy and no matter what their students were earning after graduation. But here's what changes everything. For the first time in decades, students won't be able to afford whatever law schools decide to charge. And that means schools will be forced to make some tough decisions. Now, will all law schools lower tuition? Definitely not. That is not how institutions work. They don't lead, they react. And most will only change when they feel the financial pressure. So let's break this down tier by tier so you know what to expect. The T14 powerhouses, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, and so on, these schools are untouchable, at least for now. They will not lower tuition, not even a little. Why? Because they don't need to. Their applicants have money, or access to private loans, or parents who can co-sign, or international funds, or trust funds. And most of all, these schools have brand power. They could say, this is the cost, take it or leave it. And tens of thousands of students will still apply anyway. They don't care if a few people walk away. They know they can easily fill every seat at top dollar, so nothing is going to change at these schools. But for the mid-tier regionals, think Cardozo, Emory, Fordham, GW, that's where things get really interesting. These schools aren't Harvard, and they're not safety schools either. They're competitive, expensive, and heavily dependent on Grad Plus loans to fill their classes. So what are they going to do? They're going to wait and watch. If fewer students apply, if yield drops, if students start declining offers because the money doesn't work out, that's when these schools will quietly start changing their strategy. And it won't be through flashy tuition cuts. It'll be behind the scenes. More merit aid offers, bigger scholarships for high LSAT scorers, and more aggressive negotiation when you say you're considering a cheaper school. But make no mistake, these schools are vulnerable, and if the loan cap sticks, they'll have to adapt or lose students. Now finally, the bottom tier schools and the for-profit schools. These are the schools in serious danger. Their entire business model is built on students being able to borrow the full cost of attendance regardless of outcomes. Without unlimited Grad Plus loans, many of their students simply won't be able to attend. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't make the numbers work. And when that happens, some schools will cut tuition, some will merge with other institutions, and some will shut down entirely. This has already happened before with law schools like Indiana Tech and Charlotte Law. So yes, change is coming, but not because these schools suddenly care more about affordability. It'll happen because they have no other choice. Now here's why this matters for you. If you're applying to law school in the next couple of years, you are walking into a market in transition. You'll be getting emails from schools offering generous new scholarships, not because they want to help, but because they're desperate to hit enrollment targets without Grad Plus backing them up. And if you understand this shift, you can negotiate harder, compare offers smarter, and avoid overpaying for a degree that might not pay off. So don't just ask, is this a good law school? Ask, what's their financial pressure right now? Are they depending on my tuition dollars to survive? And what leverage do I have that they're hoping I don't realize? That's what the savviest applicants are already doing. And it's how you get ahead when the system starts to crack. So now let's stop talking theory. Let's talk about what this change actually means for you. Because it's not just about law schools getting nervous. It's about students, especially students without wealth, getting priced out of opportunities they've worked years to earn. Let me break it down. If the federal loan cap is, say, $150,000, but your total cost of attendance is $280,000, here's what happens. You get into a law school you're proud of, you're excited, your family's excited, you start doing the math, and then it hits you. There's a 6-figure gap between what the school costs and what the government will let you borrow. So what do? You scramble. You look into private loans, but the interest rates are brutal. You call your parents. Maybe they can co-sign, maybe they can't. You think about deferring, but the school won't hold your spot. You wonder if all this effort was for nothing. That's the situation a lot of future law students are about to face. And if you think this won't affect you because you're smart, or driven, or willing to work hard, think again. This is not about effort, it's about access. We are entering a new era of legal education where money matters more than ever, not just for tuition, but for whether you can even show up. And I'll be honest, this hits first-generation students the hardest. It hits students of color the hardest. It hits low and middle-income families hardest. Not because they're less capable, but because they're less likely to have a 6-figure safety net. And the law schools, most of them won't care. They'll quietly replace you with someone who can pay. Law school will turn into a luxury product. And if you don't adapt fast, you'll get left behind no matter how qualified you are. Now, you can still win. You can still go to law school without sabotaging your financial future. But you've got to stop thinking like a traditional applicant. No more apply and hope. No more, I'll figure out the money side later. No more, just follow your dreams. Dreams are great, but strategy is better. Because in this new system, you either think strategically, treat the LSAT like a 6-figure scholarship, because it is, you understand your leverage, and you walk into law school with a plan, or you get caught off guard and you borrow more than you should. You graduate under crushing debt, and you spend the next 10 years trying to recover. This is why I say the winners in this new system won't be the smartest applicants, they'll be the most prepared. So if you're watching this or listening to this and realizing, wow, I've been thinking about this all wrong, good. That means now is your time to shift. The rules are changing, and you can complain about it, or you can beat them at their own game. Now let's talk about your biggest piece of leverage in this entire system. Your LSAT score. Without Grad Plus, without the ability to borrow $250,000 anymore, what's your backup plan? You can hope for a rich relative, unlikely, take out high interest private loans, terrible idea, or you can use the one tool that can literally make law schools pay you to attend. That tool is the LSAT. And I'm not exaggerating when I say a high LSAT score is the single most valuable asset you can bring to the table right now. And here's why. Every law school cares about their ranking. Their US News and World Report ranking isn't just a vanity metric. It directly affects how many people apply, how much they can charge, and how much prestige and donations they get to claim. And guess what two numbers drive that ranking? Their median LSAT and their median GPA. Your GPA is probably locked in by now, but your LSAT score is the one number you still control. And if you can boost it, even by just a few points, you instantly become more valuable to them. That's not just theory, that's economics. One of my students scored a 172. Not a 180, Not perfect, just a strong, solid score. He applied to several top 50 schools. Some of those schools were charging $70,000 a year in tuition. But because his LSAT score helped them raise their stats, they offered him a full ride. That is $200,000 saved just for showing up prepared. Now, of course, that is no guarantee that if you get a 172, you will get a full ride. Your results may vary, but it is possible. I tell this story to illustrate the potential of what a high LSAT score can bring you. Now, let's flip the script. If he'd scored, say, a 162 instead with the same GPA, same resume, suddenly he's just another applicant. Instead of getting paid to go, he'd be begging for scholarships or facing six-figure debt. This is why I say the LSAT isn't just a test. It is a scholarship engine. And if you're serious about law school, especially in this new financial environment, your strategy has to shift from good enough to get in to good enough to get paid. So how do you do that? You stop dabbling. You stop treating the LSAT like a side hustle. You go all in, like your financial future depends on it, because it does. I'm talking having a daily study routine, mastering pacing, endurance, test-taking strategies, reviewing why you're getting questions wrong, not just counting up the correct answers, taking full-length timed exams on a consistent basis, and eliminating careless errors through systems, not willpower. This is not just about studying harder, it's about building a plan that gets results, because that score can be worth six figures. And one more thing. If you're already scoring in the 160s and you're wondering, can I really push into the 170s? Yes, you can. I've coached students through that leap thousands of times. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's structure, feedback, and focus. So if you're serious about maximizing your score and your scholarship potential, start by asking, am I treating the LSAT like a life-changing opportunity or just another hoop to jump through? Because law schools are about to get way more selective in who they invest in. And right now, high scorers are the ones who get the best deals. And so if you want law school to cost less, make yourself more valuable. And it all starts with the LSAT. Now let's get one thing straight. You do not want to be the person hoping that this policy, the elimination of Grad Plus, somehow gets delayed. Because by the time schools start announcing new policies, or you see the headlines in the New York Times, you're already behind. Here's your new mindset. Assume the loan cap is happening right now. Plan as if the most conservative, most restrictive version of this policy is already law. That means you're capped in your total federal student loans for all 3 years of law school combined, maybe $150,000, $200,000 max, including tuition, food, books, insurance, bar prep, everything. You've got to reverse engineer your entire law school decision from that cap. Now, most people don't plan like this. They apply first and they figure out finances later. But you're going to do the opposite. Let me walk you through exactly how to plan for this. Step number 1, know your cap and total cost. Start with the cap. Let's say you can borrow $150,000 in total. Now you want to research what your target schools actually cost. Not just tuition, but also fees, rent, food and transportation, health insurance, books, bar prep, exam fees, laptop, Wi-Fi, and at least another 10% for all the miscellaneous stuff you forget to include. At many schools, that number is going to be $250,000 to $300,000 total over 3 years. So now you've got a six-figure gap. What are you going to do about it? Step number 2, you prioritize schools with generous financial aid. Some schools offer big scholarships and others don't. If a school can't help you close the gap, then it's not affordable, no matter how good the ranking is. Start by tracking which schools offer lots of merit-based scholarships, especially for high LSAT scores, need-based aid, conditional scholarships, big red flag for that one, read the fine print carefully, in-state tuition discounts, and living stipends or fellowship programs. Make a spreadsheet. Get specific. Know your real net cost before you apply. Step number 3, run the numbers for every city. A school's cost of living, based on where it is, can quietly add another $50,000 or more to your total cost. For example, a $30,000 a year scholarship in San Francisco is probably less valuable than a $15,000 a year scholarship in St. Louis. That's because rent in San Francisco can hit $3,000 a month or more. If you add in groceries, transit, and insurance, your affordable scholarship suddenly vanishes. Always calculate the total cost of attendance, not just your tuition. Step number 4, ask yourself the hard questions early. Can I save more this year before applying? Can I work part-time during school or the summer without hurting my grades? Can I live at home for 1L to reduce my rent? Do I have family who can gift, not loan me, a portion of what I'll need? Can I choose a slightly lower ranked school with a significantly better financial aid offer? This is not about being frugal or sacrificing your dreams. This is about choosing the smartest path to the same goal without wrecking your financial future in the process. And step 5, build a plan B. Of course, I hope, fingers crossed, you get into your dream school with a full ride. But worst case, what if you don't? You've got to have a backup plan before you're emotionally invested. Plan B could look like deferring a year to reapply with a better LSAT score, or maybe working full-time to save more before attending, or starting at a school that offered a full scholarship, then transferring later, and maybe even applying for private scholarships aggressively. Yes, they do exist. You want to be making calm, rational choices, not panicking later when you realize the numbers don't work out. That is how professionals think. They don't just follow their passion, they do the math. They plan multiple moves ahead, and they protect themselves from being backed into a corner. Because if you plan now, like the loan cap is already real, and it becomes official, you're ready. And if it doesn't happen by some miracle, you win even bigger, because you'll have less debt, more leverage, and more freedom when you graduate. This is how people who win think about things. Now let's clear up a common misconception that gets smart people into very bad financial situations. Law school cost does not equal tuition. When most people talk about a school being expensive or affordable, they're thinking in terms of tuition only. But the real number that matters, the number that will determine whether you walk away debt-free or buried in loans, is your total cost of attendance. And that includes one major factor almost everybody overlooks: lifestyle costs. Think about this. Let's say School A is ranked 25th and charges $65,000 in tuition. It's in New York City. School B is ranked 35 and charges $55,000 in tuition, and it's in Iowa. On paper, that's a $10,000 difference in your favor, which sounds great. But if you look closer, rent in New York City is way higher. Grocery, utilities, way higher. Health insurance, higher. Total living costs, way higher. In Iowa, rent is much less. Your other living expenses also less. Health insurance, also less. So the school with cheaper tuition costs tens of thousands of dollars more over 3 years just because of where it's located. And that's before interest, before bar prep, before life happens. That's why I tell my students, don't compare tuition, compare the total cost of attendance plus expected outcomes. Now here's what most people get wrong. They fall in love with a city, or they think they've got to be in a major legal market, or they convince themselves they'll live cheaply in a $2,500 a month apartment. Then reality hits hard. Most law students don't track their spending. They don't budget. They swipe their loan refund check and spend it like it's free money. And by 3L, they're shocked to see their loan balance ballooned by $50,000 or even $100,000 just from lifestyle creep. So here's what you've got to ask yourself now before you apply. What's the average rent in that city? Can I live without a car, or will I need one? Is the campus walkable, or do I have to Uber everywhere? How much is bar prep, and is it included? You don't need to live like a monk, of course, but you do need to understand the numbers. Because the truth is, you could take a $20,000 scholarship from a school in Los Angeles and still come out with more debt than if you took no scholarship from a school in Kansas. That's not theoretical. I've seen it happen over and over again. So what should you do? Build a total cost of attendance model. Pick 3 to 5 schools you're considering, add up all known expenses, tuition, fees, rent, food, books, and bar prep, multiply it across 3 years, and then compare your real costs, not just what the admissions brochure says. And do this early, before you're emotionally attached, before you visit the campus and fall in love with the cafe near the law school. Because the winners in this new system won't just ask, can I get in? They'll ask, does this make financial sense long term? And they'll have the courage to walk away if it doesn't. Now, if you're hoping law schools are going to see the Grad Plus policy change and immediately lower tuition, offer generous scholarships, and hold a town hall to explain how they're going to support students, I've got bad news for you. Law schools are not proactive institutions. They are slow, bureaucratic, and risk-averse. They don't pivot, they wait. And right now, most of them are sitting in meeting rooms saying some version of, let's not change anything until we have to. I mean, think about the incentives here. They've been raising tuition 3 to 5% every year for 2 decades straight, regardless of job outcomes or student debt loads. That means higher cost, no guaranteed improvement in education, no major innovations in the curriculum, and right now, no more unlimited government-backed loans to fund it all. They're hoping you won't notice. They're hoping that magically things will somehow reverse course. They're hoping someone, anyone, will blink before they have to change. And while they wait, they'll keep doing what they've always done, sending glossy brochures, highlighting their bar passage rates, talking about prestige and alumni networks, and quietly, all the while, raising tuition another $2,000 this year. They're betting that you'll find a way to pay. And if you can't, they'll replace you with someone who can. That's the gamble they're making, and that's the game you have to stop playing. So, how do you win in this new system? By understanding the difference between institutional priorities and your priorities. Their priority is filling seats at full price. Your priority should be graduating with the least debt and the most opportunity. Those priorities are not aligned, so don't pretend they are. Most schools are not going to come to you with a better deal unless they have to. That means if you want a scholarship, you ask for it. If you get a better offer, you use it to negotiate. And if a school won't budge on aid, you walk away, no matter how shiny the branding is. This is not about being cynical. It's about being clear-eyed. Law school is a business decision, and the only people who win that business are the ones who understand the rules of the game. So your rule is do not wait for schools to act. You act first. Build your financial model before they release their cost of attendance page. Ask hard questions before you accept an offer. Push back before you sign any loan agreement, because right now, law schools are dragging their feet. They're stalling. They're hoping the storm is going to pass. And while they're waiting, you have the opportunity to get ahead of it all. So let's zoom out for a minute. What can you do about this? You might not control policy, but you do control how you move through this system. You can choose to be the person who understands the new economics, builds a smart strategic plan, uses the LSAT to win scholarship money, chooses ROI over rankings, and becomes part of the new generation of lawyers who know how to think critically and negotiate powerfully. Because let me tell you something, law schools move slowly, but students like you can move fast. You don't have to wait for institutions to do the right thing. You could start making the right moves right now. And when you do, you don't just protect yourself, you become part of the solution, one strategic, debt-free, prepared law student at a time.